Hello there, people of the universe. My name is MikeSfi, and welcome back to some scary stories from Reddit. You guys seem to really, and I mean really, enjoy the first one. So much so that any doubt of me having making this a series were gone. It's a bit of a pity that fan encouragement doesn't confirm games. Hey, Valve. Oh, Michael, those jokes are a bit fucking late. Yeah, well, so's the third game, dickhead. Anyway, I'm calm. Are you calm? Well, you won't be for long, because this one is going to be even more fucking scary. Up first, we have a story that was suggested to me by Greg White in the comments of the first one. And someone has already read this, and they told, well, part of it, and they did say it was genuinely scary, because they were reading it at 4 AM in an apartment, so holy shit. I will also say, guys, the microphone is A, in my face more, and B, there won't be as many jokes. There will be some, so don't worry, but I do want to try and give you some nightmares. Do I sound like a dick there? Maybe a little. Never answer the door after midnight. I have never been a social person. Fucking ditto. If asked, I could name all of my acquaintances in a single breath and count my friends on one hand. Not to say that I hate people. I love people, it's just that I get really bad anxiety when it comes to talking. If any aspect of a conversation catches me off guard, if I have not mentally prepared myself, then I shut down. I can't think no matter what I do. It feels like my head is weighted and I'm drowning in burning sand. I have tried fixing this problem before. Believe me, I have tried. I've given it a shot at everything, from self-help books and meditation to exposure therapy and the ever-present advice. Stop being a pussy. Nothing works. As you can imagine, I've messed up more than my fair share of job interviews because of this. In fact, the only job I managed to get was a night janitor's position at my old high school. I knew the building, so the learning curve was easy, and since I was there at night, I didn't have to worry about running into anyone. It was a perfect fit, as she said. Due to my work schedule, however, I usually found myself awake at night, even when I wasn't working. My whole circadian rhythm was messed up. Sorry, I pronounced that terribly. My whole sleep pattern was messed up, we'll go with that. So there I sat, alone in my one-room ground floor apartment at 3 AM on a Friday. I finished work early and had the whole weekend to myself, so I settled in with a movie and was winding down when there was a knock at the door. You see, guys, the scary thing is what he was watching. He was watching Batman and Robin. I quickly muted the movie and turned. It was a faint knocking that I almost didn't hear. I had to sit in silence just to make sure I actually heard something. It knocked again. Someone was definitely there. I briefly questioned whether I should answer. The low intensity of the knock made me uneasy. The only reason I could figure someone would knock on a door at 3 in the morning, that softly, would be to see if there were any dogs inside. Burglars? Freaked by this thought, I turned the television off. I didn't even want that slightly ringing sound a muted television makes to escape. My eyes slowly adjusted to the sudden dark. The white of the front door stuck out from the shadows, casting a ghastly glow while I sat. The knocking continued. It wouldn't cease. The gloom around me shifted with imagined horror as the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Though the door was closed, I couldn't help but feel watched. Either someone knew that I was home, or they were insane. I didn't want to know, but the knocking was incessant. I had to check it out. I crept through the dark carefully to avoid making the floorboards cry out. Once I had made it to the door, I carefully placed my hands on either side of the wall and leaned forward. I had to avoid putting pressure on the door or I'd give myself away. As I leaned toward the peephole, the knocking came right by my head. As close as I was, it sounded like thunder in my ears. It took everything I had to keep from shouting out. Slowly, I lifted the brass latch over the peephole, inching it with glacial speed so it wouldn't squeak. When it was secure, I allowed myself a deep breath. Series 8 reference. I had darkness to my back and uncertainty before me. I looked. There, on the other side of the door, in the dead of winter, stood a man who had managed to avoid making any footprints in the snow behind him. Even in the dark, I could make out the details on him. He was dressed in all white, short sleeves and a hat with a black band on it. It took me a few seconds to realise what he was. A milkman, but not quite. His appearance was haggard. His clothes were filthy, stained with sweat and somehow streaked with dirt. The right leg of his pants was ripped to the knee, and his belt was hastily fastened, leaving it dangling above his waist. He looked like a 50s era milkman who was in a rush to get dressed. The colour was drained from his face, and his his yellowed eyes were gaunt as if sick. They were sunken in his skull with dark sagging bags. Yet in the middle of his forehead sat a perfect circle, dark in contrast to his pale skin. He stood silently for a moment before taking his hat off. He ran a scraggy hand through greasy brittle locks, then worriedly looked behind him. As he turned, I saw the back of his head and instantly knew what the circle was. A large portion of it had been blown out. The entry in his forehead reciprocated a grisly display of ripped flesh and shattered bone. So he was shot. Skin hung in tatters around the cavity, and chunks of pink and red dripped out in gooey clumps. This was no burglar. A gasp escaped my lips, and he quickly turned. He knocked again, this time louder. Is someone there? He asked nervously. Can I come in? I pulled myself away from the door incredulously. This couldn't be happening. I was just sleep deprived or something. This wasn't possible. At least, this is what I tried telling myself. The growing lump in my throat, however, didn't buy it. You're home early? His tone was different. Confused. It was as if he was suddenly talking to somebody else. Why are you home so early? My breathing started to pick up, and I slowly backed away from the door. I tiptoed away, staring at the nocturnal blue glow coming from the still open peephole. A phone. I needed a phone. He kept talking as his knocking grew louder. Come on! Open the door already! I fumbled through the dark like a blind man until I reached the couch. I reached down and on the middle cushion my phone sat. I grabbed it and hit the screen unlock. Nothing. The phone wouldn't come on. Why were you home so early? You shouldn't be here. I pulled the battery pack out and put it back in. Still nothing. Maybe I was hitting the wrong button because I couldn't see. I flicked on a small lamp expecting the room to be illuminated. The lamp wouldn't come on either. I tried another and was met with the same result. In fact, nothing powered on. This isn't what you think. Just open up. He jiggled the handle. I sat in the dark watching the door shake. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't call for help, and then there was only one way out. His voice was pained and he sounded impatient. I still get chills thinking about it. Why was he so nervous? I'll tell you fucking why. Because I'm in the dark and I'm worried something's in the corner of my fucking room. Why are you doing this to me? He sounded angry. Fine. I see how it is. The knocking stopped. Seconds stretched into agonizing minutes of silence. It seemed like time crawled on broken fingers as I sat there. Had he really gone? Nothing turned back on yet. I couldn't hear anything from outside. When 10 minutes had passed, I got up to check the peephole. I put my eye to the aperture and was met with the sight I dreaded. On the other side of the door, the spectre stood staring straight at me with a look of pure hatred. He slammed his fist on the door and started screaming as I fell back. The entryway shuddered under his assault and dust rained from the ceiling. I knew it! He screamed in a shrill voice. You were hiding from me. Now open the door! The handle violently exploded into movement as he pulled and pushed. Furiously he beat on the door, and it seemed the whole apartment came alive with noise. Open up! Open this fucking door, damn it! I swear to God I will kill you! I scuttled away as fast as I could, eventually backing into the side of the couch. I stared, wide-eyed, as he bombarded the door like a raving beast. He was angry, beyond furious, but he kept diverging, his voice switching from demonic to frightened. Why? Oh Christ, why are you home so early? He nearly sobbed. I could hear the wood groan as the door started to give. Open this door! Open it! Open it! Open it! Each shout was followed by pounding. I curled up in a ball, quickly losing my mind. Nobody was hearing this. I was alone without a chance at help. He grabbed the handle with both hands again and pulled back and forth, letting out a howl. The latch to the peephole flew up and down as it clattered against the wood noisily. There was a final crash against the door and he began crying in frustration. Please, I heard him say, it's not what you think. My eyes were shut tightly as he cried out. His voice was now pure fear. It sounded as if he was being murdered. Don't do this to me. I'm begging you, please. He was breaking down almost completely incoherently. Then a noise resonated that immediately caught my attention. It was a gun cocking. Oh, God. A gunshot ripped through the air with the sound of bottled thunder. I could feel the pressure wave as if I was right next to the barrel. My head began throbbing violently and felt like I could throw up. There was a ringing in my ears as the smell of the gun smoke wafted through the apartment. Then silence. There was no more banging, no more screaming or crying. The smell lingered for a moment before dissipating. I lifted my head and stared at the open peephole. The opaque light of dusk hung in the air, as ceiling dust visibly filtered through it. It spread through the black of my home, resting at my feet. My heart had long since leapt into my throat, but when that light was suddenly blocked out, I swear I could taste the blood. A malicious silence flitted through the air with the sound of heavy breathing. Then a voice cut through. It was a different voice this time. A cold voice. One that could have belonged to Hannibal Lecter. "Thanks for not letting him in," it rasped. The shaft of light returned and I heard the telltale crunching of snow as someone walked away. This time I did not get up to see who it was. Even when my lights cut back on and the migraine died away, I stayed put. I didn't know what all of that was about, but that second voice scared me deep in my bones. I didn't know how I knew, but I could tell that as the voice was speaking, its owner was smiling. Okay, so I'm going to put the fucking lights back on now because that was anxiety inducing, because that's the thing when you read these stories, they don't sound scary, and I worry that when I'm reading them they don't sound as scary, but if your imagination is as vivid as mine, and some of you, and I know some of you guys have vivid imaginations, God forbid if you could picture that as violently as I could, because Jesus, I don't fully get it. I don't know. So there was the person in the apartment who was scared shitless, there was some nutcase, and then there was a third person who shot him. The fact that he said, "Thanks for not letting him in." Even saying it sounds fucking sinister. I don't know. What did it mean? So I'm just raising my leg because my diaper needs changing. Do I wear diapers? No, but after that story I fucking might consider it. So to preface, my boyfriend thinks this has got to do with sex trafficking, as it's a pretty big problem where I live. Though I'm sure most people don't realise this is a pretty big problem in a lot of US cities. That is true, even I knew that. And Paris. Fucking French. But basically, what happened was I had finished grocery shopping and was in a parking lot during midday. Not super crowded, but crowded enough to where I didn't feel at risk of being alone or anything. As I'm loading groceries into a car, a kid, probably around 14 to 16, God forbid that's scary enough, comes up to me claiming to be homeless and asking for money, and I give him some spare cash I had on hand. All of this is fairly normal for where I live, as we unfortunately have a lot of people who are homeless with not much opportunity or help from the city to help them. What then starts to make this encounter weird is after I give him the money, he comments that I'm very pretty and would make a good model. And fucking red flag. He then asks if I am looking for work, and if I am, he knows a good place to work that does modelling. This guy trying to score some pussy. This strikes me as particularly odd because he was just asking me for money and now he's randomly offering me a job. Plus again, he's a pretty young looking kid. Is this paedophilia in reverse? I politely decline and he thanks me for the money, and I finish loading my groceries and go to start up the car. While sitting in my car and getting situated, I'll typically be setting up my phone to charge/use for Audible. I noticed that the kid who just talked to me has ran to a group of larger older men in the corner of the parking lot. Watching this for a few minutes, I see a number of younger kids run up to this group from various parts of the parking lot before going back to wandering the parking lot on their own. I also see the kid I talked to point out my car. I wouldn't say I was concerned at this point, just a little weirded out by the encounter. I mean, you are in your car, so you're safe, but you see that, you'd be like, okay, where's my gun? You're in the US, of course you have a fucking gun. Don't even try and say you don't. As I was leaving the parking lot, one of the cars by the group did leave and did seem like it was following me. Though this definitely could have been a coincidence, given it stopped following me pretty quickly and seemed to turn towards whatever its actual destination was. Still, I was feeling a little paranoid at this point and took a more roundabout way home to make sure everything was fine. I brought up the story to my boyfriend and he's super concerned about it. More than I seem to be. But I think that if this had something to do with sex trafficking, which it definitely may have, it was likely more about luring people into a false job promise than tailing someone home and abducting them off the street. Still, in retrospect, maybe a more scary encounter than I thought at the time, so I thought I would share here. Okay, I will agree, that wasn't nearly as scary as the first one, but that's kind of a good thing because it tones things down. But I do know the true horror of stuff like this, because I do know sex trafficking is a big thing. Family Guy did an episode on it called Lego My Mego. There was some taken jokes in there. Basically, Meg was kidnapped and sold into sex slavery. It was all funny, taking references. Stewie drove a car, Brian held a silenced pistol, yada yada yada. But in all seriousness, sex trafficking is a real thing. So just for the sake of anyone who might go travelling to foreign countries or anywhere, or who might live in foreign countries like America, well, not foreign, but you know what I mean, anyone who lives in places where this might be a thing, or anyone who lives anywhere, just please be safe, take care of yourselves, and try to avoid going out at night, like on your own especially. Aspiring filmmaker wanted me to be his leading lady. Okay, so Mr. O and every other video creator out there, fucking buckle in for this one, dickhead. Okay, dickheads. Plural. So this happened a couple months ago, and as I recall the bizarre memory and feel that enough time has passed now that I can talk about it, I feel inclined to share. It happened shortly after my lunch break. A man came into my work asking where the local bank is. There's one very nearby, so I figured it was an honest mistake. I work the front desk, so I'm accustomed to help anyone who comes through these front doors, even if the request has nothing to do with where I work. Oh, so you don't mind things being irrelevant to what you're doing? Wish I could fucking do that. You know who you are, commenters. I pointed him in the direction of the closest bank. He seemed to appreciate that, and hung around some more, beginning with introducing himself. Now, I'm adjusted to men asking for my name at my work. I never tell them more than my first. But I always feel it's my due diligence to put on a friendly face and humour them if they try to engage me in conversation. I'm a very confrontational person, but at work I have a people-pleasing complex, same, and I always try to go out of my way to make customers feel welcome, even if they're random passerbys that got lost and came in for directions. I didn't think much of it. He asked me if I used the same bank as him. I told him that I did, but that I don't use the one near here because I live on the other side of town. Stupid, I know. Thankfully, I didn't disclose much else. This opened the floodgates for more questions. How long have I worked here? Do I enjoy my job? Do I like my bank? Do I eat cock? You know, the usual. It didn't get really weird though until he asked me if I ever thought of being an actress. I had no substantial answer to distinguish such a question with, so I asked why he thought that. He told me I look like an actress and that he thinks I would be really good at it. I didn't know what to say other than, thank you. At this point I was stunned. Innocent small talk just took a weird turn. He told me he's working on a film and was wondering if I would be interested in starring in it. I humoured him by saying it sounded intriguing and asked him what the project was about. Right away he got defensive and said he wasn't sure if he could trust me with that information yet. Okay, fair enough. Do you believe in God? He blurted out. Careful to keep my answers neutral, I said. I'm not really sure. I've never thought about it. This isn't exactly far from the truth. I'm agnostic, but with atheist leanings. Basically, agnostic atheism, which is what I am, basically means you don't believe in God, but you are willing to accept. If someone showed you undeniable proof that this is God, he exists, then you'd believe in it. So I'm the same as that. I decided not to share that latter part with him as he was clearly a devoted Christian. At least he's not Catholic. Fucking perk your arsehole. He told me his dream is to spread the word of God and help others find salvation in God through his work. Outlast. He said he senses that I've been through some dark times, which couldn't be more true. I've been through some shit, and I'm still dealing with the trauma, and asked me if I've ever found a way back to God since then. I said it was an ongoing process. I honestly didn't really know what to tell him, so I changed the subject back to his film project in hopes he'd talk about that instead. He told me he's been working on it for the last 2 years and that he thinks he's found his leading actress, aka me. He said he has a lot of money to invest in it and that he hopes he can use it to spread the word of God. Do not tell anyone about this though, he warned. It's confidential for now. I'm just nodding along, completely perplexed by all this, and then he asked me for my phone number. I told him I don't give it out. Good decision. He said he doesn't usually either, but he thinks he can trust me. With that, he wrote down his number and email. At this point, I'm really uncomfortable, and it must have shown on my face because he said, "Don't look so nervous." I smiled and said, "I'm not." "Well, I am," he said. I asked him what he meant, and he just smiled and left. Okay, fucking weird religious dude. Outlast 4 all over again. Well, that was it. And I just thought it was a strange but kind of funny encounter. It's not every day a girl is propositioned to star in a film and then asked about her position on our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ. I had all but forgotten about it until he came back. He gave me another piece of paper with a different number on it, saying he forgot to give me his alternate contact info, just in case. He asked if I had already thrown out the other one. He framed it like he meant it as a joke, but I could tell he was angry at the prospect of if I did. I smiled and said I kept it in my drawer, then took the new one from him and placed it on the drawer as well. That seemed to appease him and I thought that was it. I asked him if he found the bank okay. "Oh, I knew where it was the whole time," he said casually. I froze, realising the implication of this statement. He told me it's not often he sees someone in the streets that stands out and catches his interest as I had. What is it in these stories and people spotting people and wanting them to do shit? Can people just fuck off? He said he watches many people as they pass by on the streets. Okay, this is getting weirder, but I'm the first that's caught his interest. He knew when he saw me he had found his leading lady in his fucking porno. If this wasn't weird enough, he went on to tell me how I looked like a girl he once knew. As he is explaining this, he's fumbling with his phone, trying to find a picture of her, but then decided against it and said he might text it to me instead. But only maybe. He said he loved her, but now she lives in London and he doesn't see her anymore. "I knew you weren't her when I saw you, but you look like her. You look interesting. I don't know. I thought she was my girl, but I guess not." I didn't say anything. Words could not be formulated in that moment. "Do you have a man?" he asked me. "Yes, I do." This was true and I answered without hesitation. "Oh, have you ever lost one?" This brought on a sharp pang of sadness as memories of my exes came flooding back. He had committed suicide last August. To say yes to that question would be an understatement. It was very eerie that he'd ask. Eerier yet that it was true. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded slowly. "Then you must know how I feel." He muttered a few other things under his breath and then left with a goodbye. I'm a little freaked out by knowing this man saw me on the street and felt inclined to follow me into my work. This happened shortly after my lunch break, so I think that's when he must have spotted me and watched where I went. For all I know, this was a one-off and he'll forget about me, but this was still very strange and unnerving. Okay, you know what? Because I'm a man who does this, I'm going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes you might say things and they come across as really fucking dodgy, but I don't know. Some people, maybe they've got conditions where they don't, like there are some people I know who have autism and they have, it's not their fault, but they have bad people skills. Like they don't realise if they're being creepy, weird, bad at socialising, or they just... An example is at a convention recently I went to, a friend of mine met a fan, and with all due respect to this fan, and I can say this as well, when people come up to me and they recognise me for my content, I love it, but specifically with this person, I don't know his name so I can't really say it anyway, but he didn't know what personal space was, and it's not rude to presume this person might be, what's the delicate way of saying this, mentally ill in a way, like the kind of people who should have carers, which if you do have a carer, it's not a bad thing. I'm not insulting you, I'm just saying this person didn't know what he was doing, but what he was doing was very inappropriate and crossing the line of personal space. So yeah, I don't know, maybe from this guy's point of view he was being flattering, and it is flattering to say, "Oh, you look like someone who I'd want in my film," and hey, whenever someone says to me, "Oh, I want you in a YouTube video," it's flattering, but please, people out there, just don't be weird, please, and don't be Catholic, because all you do is rape children. You can say I'm wrong, but we both know I'm not. Well, all of those were certainly fucking dodgy. I do have one more, the boyfriend I didn't know I had, but it's a long one, and I know I could end it on a long one, but those three, like a long one, a medium-ish one, and then a long medium, I'm happy with the ones we got. They were certainly, the first one was definitely my favourite, the whole don't answer the door. It is stories like that that make me glad that I lock my door at night, even though I don't need to because the house is locked up to begin with. But I won't lie, when I think I don't need to, and it's fine, then my brain goes, yeah, but what if this happens? And then I start to fucking shit myself and lock my door. It's why I've got a bow and arrow next to my bed, because that's where I put my bow, because when I'm watching Arrow, all nerdy shit. But at the same time, I do like having a weapon beside me in case something happens. It sounds daft, but if you've got anxiety like I have, and the fact that I'm looking around in the dark, I'm quite fucking scared. But I enjoyed this. This was fun. A lot less jokes, but I hope you guys enjoyed the stories. If you guys want to see more, as always, let me know in the comments. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and a comment, and of course share with your friends, as it really does help with the channel. Subscribe if you're new, and as always, I'll see you guys back here next time. Bye.